Hello, I'm Matthew Weinstock, Managing Editor of Modern Healthcare. Thanks for tuning into the latest episode of The Checkup. Joining us today is Dr. Laura Forese. She's Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at York-Presbyterian. With 20,000 employees, one of the challenges facing the health system, like so many others during this pandemic, has really been attention to the well-being of the workforce. We're going to talk to Laura a little bit about what they've been doing at York-Presbyterian and what some of the ongoing challenges may be as we come out of the pandemic. Laura, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, Matt, thanks. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I would never pass up a chance to talk about how grateful we are to our employees and our team members who have been taking us through this pandemic. We actually have more than 45,000 employees as we look at all of our team members, and they have just done spectacular work, and gratitude doesn't even begin to approach how we feel about what they've been doing.
Well, great. Thanks. And my mistake on that number of employees. So I think we're fairly early on during the pandemic. You started, as I understand, some daily live updates and broadcasts with your workforce. Is that right? How did that come about?
Well, we actually had the first inpatient who had COVID in New York, and we were anticipating that there would be patients coming in. What we didn't anticipate was exactly what was going to happen. We started, as soon as we had a positive patient, the CEO, Dr. Steve Corwin, and I got on a broadcast video to the entire organization saying, here's what's happened, here's where we're going to go next, and we're going to keep you informed. From that very first one, which was the first week in March on a Tuesday, we then did 7 days a week for a number of weeks, and it really continued through several months. The goal really was to make sure that we were giving our team, the broad team, as much information as we possibly could. And as we go back and look at some of those broadcasts, we can see that they evolved because, of course, the pandemic evolved. We also use it as an opportunity to have two-way feedback. So we always solicited the opportunity for people to send us emails or to give us other feedback. What else do you need to know? How can we, as the leadership, make sure that we're keeping you informed?
So talking a little bit about the evolution, what kind of things were you first talking about? And then, as you got toward the later weeks of this, how did those conversations evolve?
Well, when we first started out, we were literally saying, today, the number of patients, and it started out with 1 and then 2, and it went on. And we wanted to give people information and say, here's what's happening, here's what will happen next. So very factual. And then as the days started to go forward, within a couple of days, it started to be clear that we had to give our team a sense of, we're not sure exactly what's going to happen. Here's what we're doing to prepare. Here's what we need from you. And here's how we're going to support you. A huge part of what we judge to be the leadership was giving people information, but then also getting information. So as I look back on these daily broadcasts, we would keep saying, here's some information. We'll give you more tomorrow. There will be upcoming events or supports that we're going to provide, and keep giving us information back. So in the beginning, there was a lot about where are the patients, what's happening. As we started to get more and more patients, then we had to shift to, here's what we're going to provide for you. There was a lot of PPE discussions. You remember all of those. We were talking to people about, here's what we're looking for. Here's how we're going to provide the PPE for you. Here's, even as we moved through the course of this pandemic, we've changed, as has everyone, with what we're asking people. We went eventually to masks everywhere in the hospital for everyone. We weren't doing that in the beginning. So that was one set of issues. Then we were talking about supports. So we wanted people to be physically safe, but we also knew that people had things going on in their lives that they had to be thinking about. So childcare, once the school shut down here in New York City and the surrounding areas, we knew that we had to talk to them about childcare. Mass transit, people weren't necessarily feeling safe. So we said, well, we're going to talk to you about it, but we're going to provide support. So we were providing certain things in childcare. Parking, a lot of people wanted to park. It became those kinds of things. A lot of that feedback, food, people needed to eat. And we said, don't worry about that. We're going to provide food for you every day. But I'd say the biggest change over time was really thinking about people's emotional well-being. And there, in the beginning, it was a lot about, I need information. I need to understand what's going on. And as people went through it, information was still critical, but people needed sometimes to talk about it. So we encourage people to have opportunities to speak about it in all different forums, to write about their experiences. So we would encourage them to send us information. We had a lot of different ways people could take what was happening to them. Each person as an individual had experienced it a little bit differently. And then we were also very concerned about the trauma that everyone was feeling, particularly those who were on the front lines and who were right in what we've been describing as the thick of things in the battle. We needed to provide for emotional and mental health services for them. And that changed over time as it became clear that this wasn't a single event, this was going to extend. And it extends really to this day.
So one of those things, Laura, obviously, New York-Presbyterian isn't unique in this situation where, we've heard some criticism from frontline staff that their concerns haven't been responded to, or maybe they felt like they were left without PPE or, things of that nature. Are there things that you look back over the past, 2 months that you wish you had done differently?
Well, I think that what we did well was keep saying to everyone, we're here for you. We're going to keep you informed. We need to keep hearing from you as to what will matter. And as I was describing the supports that we put in place, those were coming out of people emailing to us, writing to us. We were doing virtual rounds because we couldn't be everywhere, but we would have people on site connecting us just as we're connecting to this, saying, what else can we do? How else can we provide that support to you? We went from, we had 2,500 inpatients at the height of this for us. We still have, as we're talking today in late May, we still have more than 800 patients, almost 900 patients in our hospitals. And about a third of these patients have been on ventilators this whole time. These patients are sick, and we really needed our team to come together in this incredible way to provide this support, to take about 400 and some ICU beds, and more than double that. We went to over 900 ICU beds. That came out of this incredible spirit, this incredible morale that people put together. And really our job was to make sure that we were doing everything we could to provide for everyone in this pandemic, because they were the ones who were going to be taking care of all of these patients.
Laura, as you think about them going forward, New York is starting to open up a little bit. We're going to start to see procedures come back. What's your message to both your staff and maybe your colleagues across the country as you think about helping staff come back during the reopening, if you will, of procedures in hospitals?
Well, we're really excited now. What we're describing is that we're calling it Renew, because of course we never really shut. We were taking care of emergencies and non-COVID patients throughout, but we've been describing this as Renew as we welcome patients, more patients back into our midst. And part of what we have to keep doing is we have to take care of all of the patients. We still, as I said, have a number of patients who are COVID positive. We think we're going to have that for a while, but we're going to have a lot of other patients, and we've got to keep everyone moving forward. We have to make everyone understand that we're making it as safe as possible for our team members as well as our patients. And because this is extending, right, we had a lot of experience after 9/11 here in New York. That was one event, and it was traumatic. We learned a lot from that, but it was an event, and then we were able to move on. This is ongoing. So we've got to do a number of things all at the same time. And as again, I think we've learned that we do this because of all of these incredible people throughout our organization. So hearing from them, really listening to them, having a lot of open channels where we can continue to say, now that we're in this next phase, as we welcome more patients back, what do you need so that you can care for our patients?
Right, interesting. Well, Laura, we appreciate you taking some time today. We know you're extremely busy. We'd love to be able to stay in touch as you start to bring back some procedures and talk about some of these issues in the future.
Thank you, Matt. It's been really a pleasure to share this with you. And if I can both thank you and one more time thank our incredible team for everything that they have done and we know will do in the future. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Stay safe. And now I'd like to bring in Modern Healthcare's quality and safety reporter, Maria Castelluccio, to talk about some of the broader issues we just heard about with Laura. Maria, you've done a lot of reporting on stress, staff burnout, things of that nature. Can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing from other health systems as you've been reporting during the pandemic about how they're addressing stress? Some of those things that Laura talked about, childcare, parking, were things you've reported on in the past from elsewhere, right?
Yeah, a lot of what Laura said is what I've heard from other health systems as well in the last few months that I've been reporting on burnout, offering things like childcare, lounging, but there's also, UNC did something interesting. They opened a little grocery store market for their healthcare workers. And then also what you said about communication, daily communication, that has been something that's come up pretty consistently in my reporting too, the importance of that, because not knowing what's going on can be a source of stress. So a lot of what she was saying, and then of course offering mental health resources too.
Right, and one of the things we didn't talk to her about, but you just had a story on this in the magazine, is the impact and the brunt of the impact on particularly the female workforce across healthcare. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to do a story about how health systems were addressing emotional well-being for their frontline caregivers in response to this pandemic. But we decided to focus on women after we saw a study in JAMA that found women on the front lines in China were more likely to report insomnia, depression, anxiety, in response to this pandemic at higher rates than men. So I thought that was something really interesting to pursue. And then what I found after talking with psychologists at health systems was that it is a source of concern. Women are kind of bearing the brunt of not only heightened stressful healthcare work responsibilities, but there's a lot of evidence that shows women continue to take on the brunt of home care responsibilities like childcare, cooking and cleaning, grocery shopping. And then even caring for elderly patients, parents is a common thing that women take on. So there was a lot of concern from psychologists that we might see heightened levels of stress, anxiety, burnout among the women healthcare workforce. And they also make up the majority of the workforce. They make up more than 80% of the healthcare workforce.
Yeah, that was a really interesting story that ran a couple of weeks ago. Lastly, as I said at the outset, you've been reporting on stress, burnout for a long period of time, even pre-COVID, obviously. As you think about what the pandemic has done to the workforce now, let's think, a year or 2 years down the road, how do you think this is going to play out in terms of addressing a long-standing problem of stress and burnout among the clinical staff?
That is what came up a lot in my reporting, and what Laura said kind of resonated as well, which is that health systems are looking at this for the long haul, because this pandemic is unique to other events. You mentioned 9/11, that was a singular event. This pandemic, we don't know how long it's going to be here. So health systems are really taking like a long view of this. And the long-term implications are, there are concerns that people are going to leave the workforce. I talked to a leader at the Association of American Nurses Association, and she said that she's heard from nurses who said they want to leave the workforce after this. So not addressing burnout, not addressing PTSD, depression, all of these things can lead to folks leaving the workforce.
Interesting. Well, certainly something we'll I know you'll stay on top of over the next handful of months. Thanks for taking the time, Maria.
Thanks.
And again, I'm Matthew Weinstock with Modern Healthcare. Thanks for tuning into the checkup. Be sure to look for our next episode on June 8th. Stay safe, everyone.